Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, for you guys, Week 15 quarterback rankings for fantasy football in 2020. Inside this video, we are going to be going over my top 20 ranked quarterbacks for week number 15 of the 2020 fantasy football season. Inside this video, I'm going to be discussing why I have them ranked at each and every single spot inside of that top 20. So before we get into it, I'd like to ask if that at any point inside this video you end up enjoying, end up having a great time, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you're new. And if you're not new, you've been watching for a while, please make sure you hit that like button for me. I would really appreciate it. And real quick, before we get deep into it, I'd like to give you guys a quick word from my friends and my sponsor over at OverlayDFS.com. OverlayDFS.com offers a variety of games on their website. It's my favorite way to play daily fantasy sports on the internet. They have the matchup shop, which I typically talk about, where you have one player versus another, plus or minus a certain amount of fantasy points. You pick one, and you put as much money on that matchup as you want, as low as like $1, and as high as, I believe, $500+. But this week, I want to talk about the quarterback shootout, because I won a lot of money on this last week, and it is very, very simple. All you have to do is you're going to get a bunch of matchups on your screen, and all you have to do is pick 5 out of the 10 to 12 that show up on your screen, and if you get them all right, the prize is very, very big. The top 10% win $50. First place gets $500. Now, obviously, I didn't win $500, even going 5-0, because 3 other people won, but that is still a decent amount of money. My other ones went 4-1, and the other one went 4-1 as well, so I made a combined $300 on Overlay DFS last week. It is very, very simple. You just pick who scores more fantasy points, player versus player. That's how easy it is. You guys do all this research all week long to win your fantasy matchup, so why not win some extra cash on top of it on OverlayDFS.com. And we are back. Let's get into it. Week 15 quarterback rankings. We began with quarterbacks 1 through 10. Coming in at number 1 this week, we got Mr. Discount Double Check Aaron Rodgers versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, this is the kind of matchup that you dream about, that you have a nice wet dream about when you're thinking about Aaron Rodgers going up against a defense that just got beat the ever-living shit out of by horsecock Drew Lock. This makes this matchup amazing for Mr. Aaron Rodgers. I feel like they're going to air the ball out all over the yard in this matchup. Aaron Rodgers has been a very safe and consistent quarterback thus far this season. I think he's able to do it again this week up against Carolina as my quarterback number 1. And number 2, we have Lamar Jackson versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. L-Jax versus Jax. In this one, I feel like Lamar Jackson's going to be able to do pretty much whatever he wants, whether it's throwing the ball or running the ball. We have seen Lamar Jackson struggle thus far this season at airing out the ball deep down the field, but when you're playing up against Jacksonville, a team that can't fucking cover the wide receivers, it'll be much easier for Lamar Jackson to be able to throw a much better looking ball the way of the receivers. But there's also the backspin on that statement, which is also that all their wide receivers have fucking corona, so it's going to be like Willie Snead and the fucking Dez Bryant and like the 5th and 6th string wide receivers out there to go and catch the ball, so you definitely have to downplay that a little bit, but at the end of the day, I still think Lamar Jackson will be very successful on the ground to put him at quarterback 2 on the week. At number 3, we have Pat Mahomes at the New Orleans Saints. Now, the New Orleans Saints defense at the beginning of the year was not looking very good at all, but then as of recently, they've been banging the drums of looking like a team that's one of the better defenses in the NFL. Except for last week, up against the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the defenses, or one of the offenses that I thought would be very easily controlled by the New Orleans Saints, and that was just the complete opposite for Patrick Mahomes. Up against the Miami Dolphins, he did struggle, but even when this man is fucking struggling, he's still playing like the best quarterback on planet Earth, so it does not matter at all. Whatever defense Patrick Mahomes is playing against, this guy's a slam dunk pick on a weekly basis. Next guy here is Josh Allen at the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos defense played all right last week up against the Carolina Panthers, but I don't expect it to look as good this week up against one of the better quarterbacks in fantasy football in Josh Allen. He should be able to do pretty much whatever he wants up against this defense, and I feel like if Drew Lock is able to keep this one close, we could see Josh Allen score even more points than some of the guys above him if that happens. But again, Drew Lock is one of those guys where it's a complete and utter fucking coin flip on a weekly basis if he does good or not. He's either going to throw like 3 touchdowns in this game, or he's going to throw 3 or 4 INTs and just look completely awful. At number 5, we have Mr. 5'6", Kyler Murray versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Kyler has been struggling after he ended up hurting his shoulder a couple of weeks ago at throwing the ball. He hasn't been throwing as well, and in the red zone, they've been looking more to hand the ball off to Kenyon Drake due to the fact that his arm just isn't feeling all that great. So I do expect him to play a bit better this week. There's definitely a big risk taken when ranking Kyler Murray inside the top 5 due to his arm issue and him not being able to air the ball out as much, but we did see last week him look a bit better in that, and I think he's going to continue to elevate himself to look better even with the shoulder issue. So I still think Kyler's able to play pretty well up against Philadelphia, who kind of has the carbon copy of Kyler Murray, just a slightly taller version in Jalen Hurts, who's obviously not as good as Kyler Murray right now, but does definitely have the potential to be that kind of a player in the NFL. At number 6, we have Russell Wilson at the Washington football team. Now, this pick kind of does scare me a lot because I don't really see this game being very high scoring at all, but there's also another scenario that does eclipse my brain that tells me that Russell Wilson is going to lay the ever-living beatdown on the Washington football team. He's going to hit him with the 1-2 Mayweather. He's going to hit him with a chair that has barbed wire on it like he's in the WWE. Earlier on in the season, Russell Wilson was cooking up 5-star meals like his name was Gordon Ramsay. Recently, he's been cooking up ramen fucking noodles to give out because he's been playing like complete and utter dog shit in comparison to the hot fire that he was spitting early on in the season like he was Daenerys Targaryen's dragon. So I do think that Russell Wilson does play all right in this game, but his upside is limited up against a very stout Washington football team defense. Number 7, we have Deshaun Watson at the Indianapolis Colts 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when these two teams first faced off on the gridiron. Deshaun Watson did look decent, but that game did include the likings of Will Fuller, who is now suspended for them PEDs. But at the end of the day, I still think Deshaun Watson is able to play quite well up against the Indianapolis Colts, as this is an in-division matchup. At number 8, we have Tampa Bay Tom Brady at the Atlanta Falcons. In this one, I don't expect Mr. Matt Ryan to be up 28-3 and Tom Brady have to crawl back into this one. I expect this one to be a murder, a absolute murder, likes the hands of OJ fucking Simpson. This is going to be nasty at the hands of Tom Brady. I think Tom really goes in there and puts up a very big game. Tom Brady, early on in the season, was really not connecting too well on that deep ball, but recently he's looked much better. Last week up against the Minnesota Vikings, he threw an absolute dart to Scotty Miller that was very far down the field, and it's looking like Tom Brady may just be back and be getting in playoff form now, and he may be dangerous in that NFC playoffs, but he's definitely not going to be dangerous in the playoffs up against the Atlanta Falcons because they won't be there, and they probably will never have even had a chance. But after Tom Brady lays the smackdown brother on him, there's literally no way that they can get in. At number 9, we have Jalen Hurts at the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Hurts, again, kind of like the version of Kyler Murray, but, you know, not as good, and has only played one NFL game, so obviously there's chances that he could look much better in this game. Did look very good up against the New Orleans Saints in real life, like my eye test, as well as for fantasy football. Up against the Arizona Cardinals, this one could be a higher scoring affair between these two teams with not the greatest of defenses, so I think Jalen Hurts will be able to get it done, especially on the ground. At number 9, at number 10, we have Ryan Tannehill versus the Detroit Lions. Last week, Ryan Tannehill had the opportunity to beat the fuck out of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he didn't do that. You want to know why? Because they were up by so much and they just kept handing the ball to Derrick Henry. That's kind of my worry in this matchup as well. If the Detroit Lions are without Matthew Stafford, this one is going to be an easy coasting of just handing the ball to Derrick Henry 35 fucking times, and then the game ends. Right? But there's also the upside that Ryan Tannehill throws like 3 touchdowns in this matchup, or 4 touchdowns, because the Detroit Lions defense is so bad, and maybe Matt Stafford plays. So that's why I got him in the top 10. He definitely has potential for a huge week, but he could definitely disappoint as well if they just run the ball a zillion times. With big man Derrick Henry now into quarterbacks 11 through 20. So if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. At number 11, we have Jared Goff versus the New York Football Jets. Now, this matchup, I think the Rams are going to beat the Jets by 7 zillion. I don't even think the Jets are going to be able to wake up from the knocking out that Jared Goff ends up giving them. But the real question is, are they even going to need to pass in this one, or is Cam Akers just going to get the ball 7 million times after they're up 17-0 in the first quarter? So it's kind of like the same issue we just had with Ryan Tannehill is with Jared Goff. Will they just give the ball to Cam Akers 7 million times, or will Jared Goff throw 4 zillion touchdowns? There's really no way to figure this out. Personally, I feel like it's going to be more about the first option where they give it to Cam Akers a lot later in the game, but I do think Jared Goff will do enough in the first half of the game to be warranting a top 11 spot this week in the quarterback rankings. At number 12, we have the man with 12 kids, Philip the Thrill-Up Rivers versus the Houston Texans. This is a matchup where Philip Rivers can break these motherfuckers like a baseball player breaks a bat over their knee when they get pissed off because the umpire has no brain. With that said, this is going to be great for Philip Rivers. Rivers and T.Y. Hilton have been a beautiful connection. Earlier on in the season, these motherfuckers had 1G connection. They had 1 bar of connection, but now they're on that 5G LTE type shit here, where they're just connecting left and right. And I think Philip Rivers is going to be able to play very well up against the Houston Texans. At number 13, we have Big Ben Roethlisberger at the Cincinnati Bengals. The biggest issue with Big Ben in this matchup is not Big Ben. He would easily be able to devour the Cincinnati Bengals like he devours some cheeseburgers in the offseason. That's why his fucking face is so big. But with that said, if he was just himself and his coach was someone else, right? But Mike Tomlin kind of plays down to these teams, right? He kind of like doesn't beat the ever-living shit out of them. An example, earlier on this season, the Dallas Cowboys almost beat them. Why? Because Mike Tomlin doesn't play up to the scenario. He's playing up against Cincinnati, but this is an in-division, an AFC North rivalry matchup, so it may be a smackdown, but I'm just not sure it will be, so I got him at 13. At number 14, we have Drew Brees coming back, likely to return in this game up against the Kansas City Chiefs. It seems as though he is going to be taking the reins back from Taysom Hill in this matchup. Now, coming back definitely does kind of scare me this week. I wasn't too sure he'd be 100% healthy, and I'm not even sure he is 100% healthy for this matchup, but Coach Sean Payton gives him the nod to go in this game. So, in reality, this could be an easy matchup for him. Not an easy matchup, but the Chiefs defense did allow a lot of scoring last week to Tua Tagovailoa, so I do think Drew Brees could play good in this one, but are they trying to run the ball? Are they not trying to make Drew Brees air it out too much? I don't really know. So I don't feel ultra confident in Brees this week. That's why he's at 14. And number 15, we have the king of kissing titties, Mitchell Trubisky, at the Minnesota Vikings. Last time these two teams went toe-to-toe, it was Big Dick 9-inch Nick Foles versus Kirk Cousins. You like that. Now it's Mitchell Trubisky, the kiss and titties god, versus Kirk Cousins. I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to play decent in this one. He's looked solid thus far this season. Doesn't look like he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but is obviously a very safe start with a decent amount of upside on a weekly basis. At number 16, we have Matt Ryan versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It does not appear that Julio Jones will be able to go in this matchup, which is very bad for Matt Ryan because he just does not look the same without Julio Jones. And that's really bad for Matt Ryan, obviously, because if he's not going to be looking as good without Julio, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that looks pretty good, up against not-so-great teams, I definitely worry about Matt Ryan. At number 17, if you like that, Kirk Cousins versus the Chi-Town Bears. With Kirk Cousins on a weekly basis, you have to try to figure out what this offense is going to do. Are they going to be the run-heavy Minnesota Vikings that give the ball to Dalvin Cook 7 million times? Or will Chicago be able to score enough to where they have to air the ball out? I'm not too sure if that's going to happen. So I like Kirk Cousins as quarterback 17 with not the greatest of upside this week up against the Chi-Town Bears. At number 18, we have Baker Mayfield at the New York Football Giants. Now, I've doubted Baker pretty much this whole season, and the guy has given me 2 thumbs up, and instead of 2 thumbs up, it's actually 2 middle fingers straight to my fucking face because I keep doubting him, and he keeps playing well with this ragtag group of wide receivers. He's still getting it done. Even when every game, I feel like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are just going to run the ball 7 million times, and they do. Baker still ends up scoring a bunch of touchdowns up against the New York Giants. I think this one's going to be another run-heavy attack where Baker doesn't do that well, but based upon my thinking recently, Baker will probably be like a top 5 quarterback this week up against the New York Football Giants. At number 19, we have Teddy Bridgewater at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers defense has looked decent thus far this season, and the Carolina offense is finally getting back all of their weapons this week, but I'm not too sure all the weapons will be enough for Teddy B to really put up a big game for fantasy football. And closing in at number 20, we got Tua Tagovailoa versus the New England Patriots. Now, the biggest worry for me for Tua in this game is after a very good performance up against the Kansas City Chiefs is the fact that he's playing Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick puts and enlists mental warfare into the quarterback's brain when they are a rookie. He just does a Jedi mind trick and tells Tua to just do some stupid stuff. He put Justin Herbert in a fucking box, and then last night Justin Herbert was throwing tugs all night long up against the Las Vegas Raiders. So it seems like Tua may struggle in this matchup, but I believe in my guy Tua to do good enough to finish as quarterback number 20. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win that 2020 Fantasy Football Championship. Also, check out overlaydfs.com. Link down below in the description. I love you all. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, good boy.